Welcome to She Moves Bravely, a podcast dedicated to empowering women through stories of resilience, courage, and success. I'm your host, Shantae Dent. Today, I have the honor of introducing you to a woman who moves bravely. Her name is Dana Gastich French. Dana, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Yes, indeed, Dana. Let's start by you sharing a little bit about what you've overcome and
Mhm.
how it's brought you to where you are today.
Wonderful. So to give a little context, today I live a life that I would classify as very free. I feel very comfortable in my skin. I love my work. I work for myself. And I'm enjoying every last drop of my family time. But to rewind a little bit, that wasn't always the case. I was really drawn to your show and your program because of this concept of bravery. I think we don't always fully understand that those who are brave don't always feel brave, right? And they feel the fright and they persevere. And so I would say originally, I started my life, I went to graduate school, I became a teacher. I followed the rules, as it were, the invisibly all too clear rules, right? And I built a life that reflected what I think everyone else wanted for me. Um, and I did that, and there were many gifts that came of that. I have three beautiful children that came of that, but I was living in a sense that I think by all means looked successful, but to me inside didn't feel like it matched kind of the wild and true version of my youth. That was me. I was the spunky kid who, identified with Punky Brewster, if anyone's from that
I
that generation.
remember
That was
Punky Brewster.
me. I was that. I was the spunky kid who was getting lost, walking into parked cars because I was in such an imaginative fog, and in a lot of ways that was trained out of me. And I think the fullest arc I can say of my story is that coming to really believe, to truly believe that we're all built exactly the way we need to be to thrive, but we can only do that when we don't focus on fitting into other ways, right? Or other structures. So we have to find and make the structures that work for us. So for me, there was this kind of parallel work of self and profession. I don't think if I hadn't gone through what became my ultimate divorce, my husband of 14 years at the time, was behaving in ways that I soon learned about, and it caused the destruction of our marriage, which ultimately I'm grateful for, because I wasn't my best and happiest self in that environment. But through that work, I had to start to figure out what I wanted, because I was very comfortable deferring to what everyone else wanted in order to keep this external peace. And that took a lot of work on, sitting and listening and kind of being in a place where I was mostly uncomfortable. But then once I started to learn what I wanted out of life, I made decisions. I made the decision to leave the K-12, a pension job. I was an administrator in a K-12 district where I had worked for 20 plus years. And I went on my own and I started my own company, UpRiver Education, to service schools around multilingual learner education. And so the short of this long is that I don't believe that any of this would have been achievable without the crumble, without sort of recognizing that we have to dismantle some things that externally might look right in order to find what is our true fit.
I'm going to repeat that last statement just in case someone missed it and make sure I'm saying this properly. Dana, you said, Dana, we have to like dismantle
Mhm.
things. And my me paraphrasing, dismantling in order to rebuild the life that we desire. But the dismantling is a little uncomfortable. And sometimes the rebuilding process is a little bit uncomfortable.
Oh, yes. A lot
As
uncomfortable,
well. A lot
right?
uncomfortable, right? You started by saying what I've heard from a number of guests, and it excites me to hear these storylines when we think back on who we were and the way we were, our tendencies, those natural childhood tendencies.
Mm,
Somewhere along this journey of life, we follow the rules. We do what other people tell us we should do, what they think our
mm.
lives should look like. And we kind of get into alignment with someone else's dream for our lives, someone
That's right.
else's desire for our lives. And what I'm hearing from you, it's what I've heard in the past, it doesn't work out so well. But the beautiful outcome is somewhere down the journey as we continue through life, we find our place again. We
Mm,
go back to that first love, that first desire. And for you, it was just a matter of living life free from being bound to what people thought you should do. And
yeah.
you took this step of bravery to create the lifestyle that brought forth peace and joy. And I like how you talk about the dismantling.
Mm,
That's important. In your situation, it was the marriage. In a lot of other people's situations, it's probably marriage. It's a friendship. It's that best friend who we thought would be in our lives,
mm,
forever. It's that 25-year career that we
mm,
thought, we'd stay in and to that to until we just couldn't walk anymore. And so I would encourage listeners to think about what area in your life is in need of dismantling.
mm.
And that question alone kind of hits me some kind of way because immediately there's like a oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's quite the question to ponder. But Dana, when you went through that season of dismantling, what did it feel like? What were those emotions, and like what was that transformation like for you internally?
This is such a great question. And as you talk and I hear my words echoed back from you, I recognize that dismantling one piece, there's always a start, really leads to others. I started to recognize patterns that I was a part of that were not serving me. I had to peacefully, but albeit forcefully end friendships, where I had to have a conversation with some friends and say, this is what I need, right? And that was felt unheard of to me. Express my needs in a friendship, and then just see that as information around whether or not it was something that would serve or mutually serve. So to me, it felt like a constant testing of whether or not I really did believe I was worth putting forth and putting forward. There's very easily, like it's like, we crease a piece of paper, that crease always in some way is there, even when we unfold it and even when we press down on that crease. So I really kind of had to keep my finger back and forth on that crease to say, you know what, this is what you've chosen. You've chosen you. There's our moments of doubt in yourself, and especially if you have lived in service of others for your life, and there are beautiful ways to do that, but there are ways that are not actually sustainable. But if you've been there, sometimes I think we need to find like a proxy for our own faith in ourselves. And that's where surrounding myself with people who did believe in me and did see me even when, my self faith kind of faltered was really key to kind of bridging that gap, to going from the platform to the train car, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that felt like this faltering, this constant back and forth. It felt very unsteady, um, but it also, and uncharted, right? Because it's living a life you've never lived before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dana, you touched on another concept, and that's the power of community.
Yeah.
as you were rebuilding, you needed to identify, who's going to be in my inner circle. So I'm not going through this journey alone. Now,
Hmm.
self-awareness is what I'm hearing all day long.
Mm.
Self-awareness, because as you're able to navigate, there has to be that moment where you're looking within. And I think I heard you say ownership. I believe
Hmm.
that word is what I heard, taking ownership of what's working, what is not working. This is your moment of inventory and removing, the heavyweight, the baggage, what's slowing you down, and putting yourself in this position, like I'll just say acceleration mode. How am I
Yeah.
going to move forward and like get, thrust into this space of greatness for my life? And it's all about self-awareness. So there's I imagine someone listening, and as we know with the stories we hear, the specifics, the details might not be in perfect alignment. But a lot of
Mhm.
times, the overall journeys, the emotions that follow are similar. And if you are in that situation where you feel as if you are distant from your true self, from who and what you truly know that you're called to be, here is the wake up call. The
Mm.
wake up call for you to have this moment of self awareness and self reflection, and be honest with yourself. Where am I today? Am I content with my current state, my career? And if not, what is your next step?
Mm.
Will you be in the same position next month or next year? Surely, I hope not.
Mhm.
Now, as you, Dana, continue this journey of life, I want to get back to these steps. It was dismantling, the rebuilding,
Mhm.
being in the K through 12 education sector. You pivoted in a sense, you started your own organization. So, what did that particular transition look like for you?
Oh, it was ugly until it was beautiful. You mentioned things feeling not right, and things felt not right for a while for me in this leadership structure. What I recognize now about myself is that that's not my best structure. I thrive as an entrepreneur. But I saw that discord and that feeling of not right as a problem inside me. So if your listeners are feeling like something's not right and they're thinking, well, then that must mean I'm not right, because that's the messaging that happens when we want folks to conform. Maybe they can pause and say, what if there's another way of looking at this? What if that's not so? I wound up finding a coach who had started her own education consulting company. And through that, to your earlier point, introduced me to a community of women, of powerful women who were also borrowing from one another's faith in each other. But we had seen the example in her. And she said, I am looking back now and I can see I'm on the hilltop and I can see the path. So let me just point you in the right direction. That was instrumental. I consider myself a very independent, intelligent person who can probably figure out anything given the right resources. But there's a power in having someone who's walked that path. And especially when there's an emotional layer to this and a self-awareness layer that, as a good friend of mine said, is a little bit like waking up. You're groggy at first, you're awake, but you're not awake, right? So really utilizing and leveraging that community, which I still, in fact, I was on a call this morning with a woman I met through that community years back, and we're still pushing each other to our next step and our next height.
Powerful. Dana, I am also hearing the power of a changed perspective. I used to be where you were when you talked about the discomfort. I feel uncomfortable. It must be me. I must
Mm.
be the problem. It's something wrong with me. And I found that mindset paralyzed me, and it diminished my worth and my value, and there went my self-esteem. it is a game changer when we can change our perspective and
Mhm.
this healthy balance as well. Because when we see external problems, sometimes we move forward in an unhealthy way where we're pointing the finger and then there's anger, frustration, bitterness, and blame.
Mm,
And this is the thin line, listeners, where we want to have a healthy balance. So we started talking about self awareness. So if it's you and when it's you, don't overlook, pay attention, get into alignment, do your part. If and it's an external factor, an organization, individuals, identify and take a healthy step, not a step where you're wanting to show revenge. Make moves for yourself. Now, if you can circle back around and have a meeting or a consultation, and you're invited to share your opinion that could be for the good of the group, by all means, go that route. Help them become better as you choose not to become bitter.
mm,
At the end of the day, when you are in this space of changing your perspective and transitioning through life, career, business, relationships, whatever that looks like for you, I encourage you to intentionally create a healthy foundation as you're moving forward. It's just something about transformation when our heart is in alignment and in a healthy place. I believe that opens doors and opportunities for us that we would have never thought imaginable simply because we are in the right place. We are
mhm.
not bitter about our past. We might not like our past, but yeah, we understand the power of choice. Dana, you talked about that. You had to make a choice, many choices that led you to where you are today. And
Yeah,
so I just wanted to reiterate that, again, as we are making moves, changing our perspective, maintain a healthy balance, lay a healthy foundation as you move forward to your next level. And it's exciting and it's fun and it's empowering when you go about transitioning the right way.
I love
Dana,
that so much. Thank you.
absolutely. No, thank you. You're making the statements. I'm piggybacking on your words. Now, so you again, you were in an environment and not content with the leadership or the way you experienced different styles of leadership. So you formed your own organization.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what you are doing today, how you're serving the community and school districts as well as educators?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So at UpRiver Education, we were formed based off of the quote by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who said, "There comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in." I read that quote some time ago and it worked on me. Like when I was sleeping, it worked on
Mm.
me. And I, at the time, was an administrator in a school working to serve multilingual students. So students and families who are coming from a different linguistic and typically also cultural background, trying to become included in academics and the social networking in schools. And I was a little bit of the bridge, the liaison for that, trying to ensure they had access to the full range of experience in the school system. But what I recognized is we were in some ways set up to wait for these students to fail and then intervene. We were waiting downriver, right? And I thought, am I complicit in this thinking? Is this something, are we expecting that an English learner, a student who's doing the most incredible thing, they're going to school in a language that is not their first, right? Um, are we expecting them to fail, or are we looking at our systems and structures? So it was at that time that I started to voice a lot of the inequities I was seeing, looking at really the systemic challenges. And I think the system that I was in felt um like they hadn't been used to me voicing these things because there was a former version of Dana that fit very well into that system. So all of a sudden, it was a little bit of a mismatch. But I was also at a time taking myself more seriously where I said, you know what, I have some great ideas to share. And it's that then that I found my coach and I opened my consulting company. And, proof of concept, right? I went and I found clients who had that readiness because not every district, not every administrative panel is built the same, who wanted to hear what I was saying. And now we do program audits and reviews where we look soup to nuts at us at a school system's ability to provide an equitable opportunities and access for students. We provide trainings for their teachers. We have an ESL curriculum that leverages the culture and experience of the students in front of them. And the sky's the limit. We're building out some new curricular opportunities for professional learning, and it's just been wonderful.
UpRiver Education. It sounds like it's wonderful, Dana, and it sounds
Mhm.
like you are doing incredible work within the school system, and it's necessary. I often think about how we are accustomed to the way things should be because we don't step outside of our comfort zone. And when you hone in within the educational system, there's so many uh, formats that can be introduced. At the same time, I can understand there's a lot of resistance because this is how we've always done our programs. But I
Yeah.
love that you stepped out to provide a necessary service. And I thought for a moment when you talked about students who they're doing a brave thing, they're enrolled in a school, learning a new language. It's not their first language. That on top of any other hurdles that they're experiencing in life. Now, I don't know about you, but I know what it's like when I go to a different country and they're speaking a language. And that brief visit is enjoyable. At the same time, I'm like, oh, I need my app. I'm not quite sure who the
Right. No, welcome.
translator.
This is your life now, right?
Yeah, but here are, students who are just fully submerged into a new lifestyle at a different language. And I can see how beneficial your program is. And I'm really glad to hear that you were able to gain insight and take a different approach to serve the students and their families as well. Dana, how can educators and administrators get in touch with you and partner with UpRiver Education?
Well, thank you for asking that. My website is uprivereducation.com. That's a great way to explore, kind of get a sense of who we are a little more deeply. And there's a contact form there. I'm always happy to schedule a very brief, easygoing conversation just to learn, share some insights. And if that's helpful in and of itself, then that's great. And if it can lead to deeper support, we're happy to talk about that. I'm also on LinkedIn as Dana Gastich French and Instagram at upriver_education.
Dana, thank you for moving bravely. Thank you for not stopping, getting stuck or paralyzed in pain.
Mm.
I know that you are changing the trajectory of a lot of lives. The outcome of their lives, I believe, will not be the same because they've experienced a different form of education and programming through UpRiver Education. So I commend you for stepping out of your comfort zone, for dismantling and rebuilding and being of great service to students, educators, and school districts as a whole.
No, thank you, Shante. I appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, same here. Well, listeners, if it's not you, perhaps it's someone you know who could take advantage of a partnership with UpRiver Education. Moms, what about your kids' school? What about your nieces and nephews? Spread the word, would you? Again, Dana, we appreciate you for showing up today, and we wish you the absolute best, greater and deeper levels of success through UpRiver Education.
Thank you so much.